Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders of Transformation. Today we're going to talk about how to slow down and still achieve the results that you want. I think we all could use a little bit of slowing down these days. We're very busy, and life just keeps moving faster and faster. Well, our guest today is going to show us how to do that. Jennifer Dawn is a serial entrepreneur and has built two multi-million-dollar businesses. She is working on her third now. She is a published author, an accomplished speaker. She is the owner of Jennifer Dawn Coaching and the founder of The Best Planner Ever. She serves entrepreneurs through her coaching and through her 2-day deep dive intensives. She's a master at setting and achieving goals, problem solving, and cash flow. Jennifer, welcome to Leaders of Transformation. We're excited that you're here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm also excited for our listeners and our viewers that are out there, that you're here too, because this is all about you. I mean, I love hanging out with great people and having great conversations, but I record them so that we can share them and they can inspire you, not only give you the tips and tools that you need in your business to grow and to thrive in your life, but also to be able to inspire you that, you can make a difference. The skills, the experience, the passion that you have is certainly valuable. And it's just packaging that and figuring out how you can share that with the world. And so I hope this inspires you and encourages you to do that. And we'd love to hear your stories on how you're doing that currently or how you plan to do that and how we can support you in that. Certainly, I'm a coach and I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs to start and launch their enterprises and as well as grow. And of course, Jennifer, we're going to have a great conversation. We got two coaches here, so get ready.
Yeah. How could it not be great?
It would not be great, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So also want to do a shout out to Interview Valet because Tom and Karen Schwab and their team is amazing. They send me amazing guests all the time. And I just really appreciate them and their support of the Leaders of Transformation podcast. So thank you to them. And one last thing is I was actually part of a book called Power Up Superwomen. And it's a number of stories of women who have been through difficult, times in their life, in their business, in their relationships, health, various scenarios, and they've overcome it. And so these are stories of courage and empowerment to encourage you as to be the superwoman that you're capable of being. And so you can get a copy of that book at theleadersoftransformation.com/resources. And I should also say that after this interview, if you liked it, and we really hope you will, and I trust that you will, is to go on iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It really does make a difference. I read them, and they really I take them as a bit of a testimonial for our podcast and the work that we're doing. But it also helps us to get a greater reach on iTunes and the different platforms that we feed out to. And the more people we can reach, the more people we can inspire. So you can help us to do that. All right. So Jennifer, let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. Not only do we have two coaches on the line, we also have two very entrepreneurial women here. So yeah. I know this is going to be a very fun conversation, but I heard a little bit about your story of how you got to be an entrepreneur. So maybe you can share that here.
Yeah, absolutely. So my very first experience with being an entrepreneur was as a small child. My grandfather was a chiropractor and they had a home. My grandmother was actually a chiropractor as well. She was one of the very first chiropractors to have graduated that was a female from Palmer Chiropractic College. And so really from early on, I was exposed to an entrepreneurial woman in my life, which was such a great role model for me. And they ran their office attached to their home. So it was really interesting to me that I got to see my grandmother, she'd be cooking us all breakfast and then she'd be running into the office and doing billing and helping my grandfather and back into the home and back and forth and back and forth. And it was really, really fascinating. And so my grandfather had an apple tree in his front yard. And so I decided that I was going to make an apple stand because all kids had lemonade stands. And I was like, I am not doing what everybody else is doing. And so that was really my first business. And looking back, I realized that was the best business ever because my inventory was completely free. I just picked it off the tree. I had a steady stream of clients from my grandfather's office just walking past my little stand all day long. I got to keep all my profits. It was the best business ever. But I just have this memory of 8 years old, and I remember looking in my hand and seeing 8 shiny quarters. And I had earned those 8 quarters. And to me, that just felt like so much money. And I just felt so rich. And I just loved that feeling of providing something amazing, and people were loving it, and I was making money, and it was just amazing. So I like to say that I kind of was like born with that entrepreneurial spirit. It really tapped in there pretty young. And even as I grew up and I went through high school, I had a cake decorating business. Like, I just started these little things, and I just loved doing it. And I loved providing something and then getting paid to do it. And the work, I love the work. I love the creating of it all. So there you go. And then I went on to start my first, quote, real business when I was 23, but the bug bit me early.
Yeah, well, I can relate to that. I have lots of those fun stories, and I can just see you out there with your little apple stand.
Yeah.
And, but you talk about pride, the pride of earning your own money
Mm-hmm.
and being able to see that. I think that that's a great gift to give to children, to be able to experience that,
Yeah.
give them that bug, and
Right.
give them that opportunity. Now we're so afraid of what kids are going to do. They have to be safe and so forth. Of course,
Yeah.
the world is a little bit different, but there are certainly opportunities to do that.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful. So then it sparked, you started your first business at 23. So that was in what industry?
So I was in the software industry. I had actually worked for a few of the competitors. And while I was there, so I did point of sale software for the amusement industry, water parks, ski resorts, museums, places like that you go and buy a ticket that are in the family entertainment industry. So it's that software that sits at the front gate. And I was really a systems integrator. So we developed software, but then we provided the hardware, the network, all those pieces. And I had worked for a competitor. And while I was with them, they bought up 3 companies, and I was with them while I did all of this. And I loved the industry. I loved the people. I loved the work, but they were doing such a horrible job of servicing the customer. I mean, it was just appalling. And when I was the person getting sent out all over the country to be at these customer sites and get my rear end chewed because this company was doing such a bad job, like, I was like, there's got to be something better here. And so that was really the catalyst of, I'm going to start this company. And that's what I did. And I did that for 13 years. I grew it from nothing. My first year, my sales were $300. I grew it up to 7 figures. We were a leader in our industry. We were actually the first point of sale company to use a touchscreen. Obviously, everybody does that now, but back then that was kind of a big deal that we were like the first ones on the scene to use Windows, to have a touchscreen, to do these things. So yeah, that was kind of like my first official company where I learned so much, but I was definitely in that software tech world. And even my second company, after 13 years, I was just like ready for a change. I'd gone through a divorce. I was like, I'm just really ready to do something else. And so I actually bought a company that was a log home company because I wanted to do something completely different. Software is not tangible. You can't hold on to it. And I wanted something tangible. So I bought a log home company of all things. And it was the same year the real estate market like completely fell out. And so I opened and closed my doors within a year. Talk about the worst,
Wow.
like fail fast lesson. I look back now and I learned so much from it, but it was so hard when I was going through it. And I decided, I became a little disillusioned with this entrepreneurial journey. And if you've been on it, there are times when, those days when you're just like, let me just look in the want ads and see who's hiring, right? We've all had those days. And then you look and you see who's hiring and you're just like, oh crap, let me just suck it up and get my
Can't do
business
that.
right again. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't do that. So I did end up taking a job in corporate. And I moved across the country and I was the software division president for a big $54 million manufacturing firm. They bought a software company. They had no idea what to do with it. It was still point of sale. It was just a different industry. And so I was like, I can do this. And I took that job, moved across the country, and I did that for about 2.5 years. And while I was there, I grew their revenues from about 300,000 for my division to 2.2 million. And I was able to do that in just under 2 years. So it was really explosive growth. It was pretty exciting. But when you go from being on your own to a big $50+ million company, our marketing budget was $1 million. Like, how can
Yeah.
you not succeed when your marketing budget is $1 million and you have a human resources department and IT department? So I had all these resources at my disposal. So that was, another great experience. But again, the entrepreneurial bug, I found some issues in the software. Ownership didn't want to fix them. I'm like, well, we have to fix them because that's what you do. It's the right thing. They didn't want to do the right thing. And so again, it was like the bug bit me, and I'm like, it's time to go back out on your own. Plus I found that I wasn't seeing my children because I was, in the office so much. I wasn't seeing my kids, and I had my kids to have kids, and I like my kids. I wanted to see my kids. And I was just like, I've got to make a change here. And so that's when I did. I stepped back out and went back out on my own. And that's what launched me on the journey of becoming, a business coach and mentoring others. And now I'm in my element. I absolutely love what I do, but it was, definitely a journey, of course, to get here.
Well, and I love hearing the stories of how, sometimes people think that you need to, figure it all out up front and say, this is the thing that I'm going to do with my life. I hear that a lot now, right? It's like, what's my purpose? What's the thing that I'm going to do with the rest of my life? And you know what? The odds are that what you think you're going to do for the rest of your life isn't going to be that. It'll be, there'll be a window of time where you'll enjoy it, and then you'll go on to something else, or you'll evolve into something else. And I've done that myself too. And I hear that even in what you're doing. And then all of this experience that you have, now you're applying this to this current business. And I know you built, it's called the best planner ever.
Yes.
So you're talking about goal setting and planning, like planner as in, initially when I saw that, I wasn't sure if you were a planner or if you were actually creating planners. And so, so talk about that business, more specifically what you do, what you offer as a product. And yeah,
absolutely. It's a little play on words there, because the idea, I love planning. So, and I'll tell you a funny little story with that. So after I'd left corporate and set out on my entrepreneurial journey again, I relocated up to New York, met a wonderful man, remarried, and he's a New Yorker. I'm from Arizona, so I'm like, can I please be warm? But I'm not, because I live in upstate New York now. But when I got here, I was asked by a women's group, an entrepreneurial national group, to come in and mentor them and run their accountability and masterminding circles, which I did, and I absolutely loved. And that's really what kind of gave me the bug of coaching and mentoring, because I had brought this experience in and I was able to start mentoring all these women. And they eventually made me the president of the company, and they had their own planner. And as the president of the company and the person like mentoring all these women, I was kind of, it was an unspoken thing. I was expected to sort of use this planner, and it sat on my desk because I hated it. I was like, I just didn't like it. It didn't. And, a planner is a very personal thing. I totally get it. You want to find one that works for you. Mine might work for you. It might not. And that's okay. But it didn't fit. It wasn't a good fit, but I had to kind of smile and say, yeah, this is so great. And so after I'd stepped out on my own, and I'm looking at my desk one day, and I'm out on my own now, growing my own coaching practice. So I've got my business, I've got 3 kids, a husband, a house, like all these things going on. I'm like, I need something that's going to do more, because my desk was a disaster. And that's when I sat down and I said, you know what, Jen, you're just going to have to make something. And I did. And I had my little $10 Walmart planner, and I had my vision book, and I had sticky notes, and I had all this stuff everywhere. And so that's where I really sat down and I created a page, because I didn't just want the analytical, time blocking, time. I needed the spiritual side. I needed the health side. I needed all these things. And I also needed to align with my vision of where I wanted to go, because vision is direction. If you haven't taken the time to get clear on your vision, you basically are just sort of leaving where you end up to chance. And I didn't want to do that. And so those were some of the first pieces that started going into this was, okay, wait, I need to reconnect with my vision and know I want to look at where I want to end up first before I plan my day. I want to be more intentional with my time. I need to take care of myself. And of course, I have all this business stuff. I need to grow a business and push this thing forward. And I need to show up when I'm supposed to be in some place. So that's where it all came about. And I started using it for my own business. And I started just getting really good results with it. I'm like, wow, this is great. And so one day I said to my husband, this is the best planner ever. And he's like, it is? I'm like, yeah, it really is. I was like, you know what? I'm going to call it that. He's like, you really are? I'm like, I totally am. And then I looked it up and the domain was free. I was like, how is this domain not taken? I'm like, that's it. It's done. That's what I'm calling it. Best planner ever. So it's kind of a funny little thing. It's like, are you sure you want to do that? I'm like, yeah, why not? I think it's the best planner ever. And for the people who it works for, they're going to think that too. So that's all that matters. And so that's where it was really born. That was back in 2015. And so I then started using it with clients, and I'm like, hey guys, I'm getting good results. Let me see how you guys are going to get results. And they started getting good results. And then of course the entrepreneurial bug, it's like, well, now I'm just going to make it its own company. And that's what I launched in 2015. So that's kind of the story of the best planner ever, how it came into existence.
Well, a planner, like you said, is so personal, and
Mm-hmm.
yet there are certain things that, it's like this work-life balance of, I mean, I used to use a Franklin planner and I loved it. It was great. But that's because on one side I could organize my, business to-dos and all that and my meetings. But on the other side, I could write my notes or like,
Mm-hmm.
gratitude or different things. I love what you said there. It's about incorporating all of those elements
Mm-hmm.
because, I see a lot of times even with my clients, I'll have like something on the fridge that is the family calendar, and then they'll have the health calendar of what they're supposed to be doing, what their trainer, if they have a trainer, says that they should be doing, and then there's the work calendar, and then there's the personal events, things that they've got going on calendar, and there's just way too many. I'm all about efficiency, and
Yeah.
even it's like email. I mean, this is a little side tangent, but people they have to check their email in so many different places. I'm like, no way, I am
Mm-mm.
not doing that. It is all going to one place,
Right.
and I'm going to check it there. And now of course you have social media, all these different platforms. You're like, good Lord, how many platforms do we need?
Right.
But
Right.
it's like when you're talking about your time, something so precious is how you
Mm-hmm.
use your time. And you don't really, people talk about managing time. You don't really manage your time. You manage yourself, right? And how
Right.
use of your time. And so, what are some of the elements? So you mentioned about health. You just kind of quickly
Mm-hmm.
stand over it. So obviously, there's a section for scheduling your calendar of events, and
Mm-hmm.
then what else is involved in it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're right. With kids and their schedules, husband, his schedule. I have a horse. He's got a schedule. I needed everything in one place. And this actually came from, and I mean, no disrespect, David Allen and Brian Tracy. I'm huge fans of both of them. David Allen, Getting Things Done, like great book. A little too much. They get
Yeah, it's a
a
little over
little
the
too
top for
much for
me.
me. Yeah. And so it's interesting. I think time management, and I'm not being disrespectful at all, but sometimes time management for men, I think, is different than time management for women. We
Agreed.
have slightly different priorities. And so there were elements of these books, but one of the things I had read, and I don't know which one to give the right credit to, I might have been David Allen, but he said everything in one place. Or it was Brian Tracy, one of them, but they said everything in one place. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So when I created the planner, I was like, I want to be able to put everything in one place. I still have an electronic calendar, but it's not my go-to. My paper planner is my go-to. Yes, there's some duplication. I'm okay with that. But as long as when you're putting everything in one place, when we talk about the ability to slow down and take a little breath, when you know that everything is in one place, you kind of stop panicking that you've forgotten something. And you can start to sleep a little better at night because you're like, okay, it goes in one place. Even though I have sticky notes at my nightstand, and I have sticky notes in my car and in my kitchen. Those sticky notes, even if I'm writing a note, it always ends up back in my planner, which is my one place. And that will actually give your brain a break, because instead of, your brain can then start thinking and not always be trying to remember everything. And this was really, really key. When I created the planner, there's actually a section in the bottom that is the perfect size of a 3x3 sticky note. So I have room. I can stick my sticky note there, or underneath it is like a meal and health tracking. So I can double use that space. But the concept around it was, I want a one place for my kids' schedules, my husband's, everything. So if you ask me, what are you doing? I can't answer the question until I look in my planner, but it's all there, and it gives me complete peace of mind. It lets my brain rest. I never really lose track of anything anymore because it's all there. So this is one of the key elements. Regardless of whatever planner you're using, every one of these principles can be applied to whatever planner that you have a big heart for. This is my planner. That's great, but just make sure that you're putting everything in one place. And that is a huge, huge thing as far as being able to just slow down and relax a little bit and know that you haven't forgotten anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I think there's a lot of headspace that is taken up about trying to remember things. And I'm a big
Hmm.
believer in just dumping. It's like brain dump. Just get it all out of your brain onto a piece of paper. Ideally,
Hmm.
you can do it, electronically as well. But there's something actually about paper and writing it all down on
Hmm.
paper that really works. And then you get it there, and then you can get it out of your head. And now you have all this extra room for the creativity that you can come up with all these great ideas. There's space up there to actually to create. So very, very cool. Now,
Right.
as we talk about, that's one way of certainly slowing down and achieving the results that you want. What are some of the other ways? Because I know
Hmm.
you talk about goal setting, and how does that play into this? This is how they manage their time,
Hmm.
but you mentioned it so well. They've got to have a vision and direction of where they're going.
Yeah, absolutely. Great, great question. So there's a couple of key pieces here. You want to have your vision, and I would hope that you take some time in creating the vision. I like to relate it to driving a car. Nobody knows how to just drive a car. Well, we don't always really know how to create a vision either. We have the idea of the concept, but really how to do it, how to sit down, how to look at the areas of your life, flush through the, I with my clients, I give them a set of questions. And even in the planner, we have an online course where I walk them through a set of questions so that we are creating a really well-rounded, flushed out vision statement of what you want your life to look like. And so when we talk about slowing down, well, if you don't slow down, you're never going to have the time to even create the vision statement in the first place. So this
Right.
is where slowing down starts to become such an integral part of even doing the work we need to do to get to a place where we feel like we can slow down, but it's like it doesn't work. Like we have to put the horse in front of the cart. We've got to slow down first, do the work on the vision to create a picture of what you want your life to look like. And then from there, your goals are going to fall out of that. And then from there really comes the daily time management. But what I see all the time is women, and I was so guilty of this myself for years and years and years, is it's like, set a goal, get busy, set a goal, get busy. Like this is all I did, set a goal, get busy. And I also started looking at my list because I'm a list girl. I like to make lists. I'll put things on there just so I can cross them off. We all know who we are, and it's okay. But I would go back and I would look at my list and I would see myself crossing things off that were not really high priority things. And they weren't really moving the needle on my goals. It was just me crossing a bunch of crap off my list each day. And so this is what I've done in the planners, kind of taken the to-do list to the next level, and it ties in the brain dump that you were talking about. We kind of take the brain dump to the next level too, because you can brain dump everything on paper, but then you've got a big sheet of paper with a bunch of stuff to do. Well, now what do I do with it? And so what I use is just I call it the ABCs of productivity, and it's a very simple system, A, B, C, D, E. And I've literally tied this into every single page so that when I look at my day, I'm got that reminder right there, A, B, C, D, E. So A is going to be a task that moves my goals forward. Sometimes it's that push. It's that thing we want to procrastinate. It's that phone call we know we need to make, but we're making excuses and we're not making it. It's the networking group we know we're supposed to go to, but we haven't really committed or put it on our calendar, right? You know what these things are. And it's those things that you know, those are like opportunity makers. And if I do that, it will really move my goals forward. And for some of us, an A could be self-care. We know we're super low and we know we need to take a weekend off. So sometimes an A is that. It's like, I need to take care of myself. I need to recharge my batteries. I need to take care of my health. So your A will change, but it's always pushing a goal forward that aligns with your vision. Always. There's never a question. When you ask, is this an A? My answer back is, does it get you closer to your vision? It's either a yes or a no. And if it's a no, it's not an A task. So A is that. A is push to the vision. B are things that are important. Show up for my interview today with Nicole. That's a B. It's important, very important, but I am going to do it no matter what. So that's a B task. The client meeting, the vendor meeting, those time blocking things, those are our Bs. C is going to be something that can absolutely be moved to another day. It's not super priority today. It can wait a few days. We don't have to cross it off the list today if we don't have to. So that's a C. A D is delegate, because I need the reminder. I'm like, wait a second, I have a team. I have a big team. It's like, wait a second, I got to send them stuff to do. I can't just do it all myself. And sometimes delegation might even be asking your husband to cook dinner or saying to the kids, you guys are washing the dishes tonight. So sometimes delegation can be personal. It could be through your business. And E is, of course, eliminate. So when you take that big brain dump list and you A, B, C, D, E it, and no, everything cannot be an A, but you A, B, C, D, E it, now you have something. Now you've got something. It's like, oh, I'm getting rid of this. I'm saying no. I'm being empowered with my time. I'm delegating this stuff off. These are my A's. Now I'm going to break them down into 1, 2, 3, transfer those things into my planner. And it's almost like the floodgates open and you all of a sudden have more clarity. You have more focus. You're not like so like fog brain anymore. And you start to work with intention each day. And the same thing transpires when you open up your day. So when I sit down to plan my day, the first thing I do is I read my vision statement. First thing, I timed it. It takes 1 minute and 43 seconds. And I'm like, okay, do you have 1 minute and 43 seconds? I was like, yeah, dummy, of course. Like, how could you not take 1 minute and 43 seconds to read your vision statement? So I do that first. And then when I plan out my day, like right there, it's A, B, C, D. And I'm like, okay, what's my A today? And an A can be a 10-minute thing. It doesn't have to be a 3-hour thing. And often it's a 10-minute or less thing. But if you're doing 1 to 3 A's a day, you're going to have so many opportunities, so many doors open to you, so many things that are like, oh, she's so lucky. It's like, no, I'm really not lucky. I'm always putting it out there. And because I'm always putting it out there, I'm always getting a lot of things back. But I'm being very, very intentional with my time. So when we talk about slowing down, I know I can slow down because every day I take a 10-minute step forward, a 10-minute step forward. So even by the end of the week, even if I've only done one 10-minute thing a day, that's almost an hour of putting my butt out there. And it starts to be like, well, I know I can slow down because I'm putting it out there and I don't have to worry because here's all the clients, here's the orders, here it all is, because I've been, cramming that pipeline full each day with literally 10 minutes at a time.
Nice. Well, and with that is also saying no to things. I know there's so many things. I had a client one time, she came to me and I said, write down all the things. She had all up in her head. So she'd write down all these things. And she had 4 pages, like small print of all these things that she wanted to do her to-do list. And I said, okay, now cut that in half. Well, I can't cut it in half, blah, 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 blah. Okay, cut it in half. She came back and said, okay, so cut it in half again. Because the reality is a lot of the things, like you mentioned, is like, what am I doing? I'm checking this off. I'm busy, but I'm not productive. And so when you say no to those things, so talk a little bit about the importance of saying no to be able to open up the space for the yeses to come in.
Oh yeah, that's so great. Because I don't know what it is. As women, we tend to be like, oh, I can't say no. I can't disappoint somebody. And as I'm getting older, I'm just like, I'm going to say no a lot. In fact, my husband and I, it was so funny last Christmas. We actually made a game out of saying no to all of the invitations that were coming in. And it's not that we don't love people and appreciate people, but we were really committed to having a holiday time that was slower. We could recharge our batteries. And so we made kind of a competition out of how many invites did you turn down today? How many did you turn down today? Because we made it fun, because sometimes saying no can be so stressful on us. And so if you can find ways of saying no that actually feel good, I actually wrote a blog on this. It was like 20 ways to say no. And there's just all these different funny little things of, if we can make it not be so big and huge and such a bad thing, it's actually a really good thing. Because the more we're saying no, then that means we're saying yes to the right things. And that's what really matters. But one of the things that helped me a lot was when I took the time to get clear on the vision, and then I looked at my to-do list and it was like, wait a second, this doesn't get me here, but this does. Oh, that connects, but this doesn't. And that for me made it really, really easy to say no to more, because I was like, it doesn't get me to where I want to be. So I'm just going to say no to it. And that felt really, really good. But it's absolutely just a skill that we almost have to develop, of being able to, say no to the wrong things so that we can say yes to the right ones. And I think that when you start to really hone in on your priorities, it gets easier. It just kind of by default gets easier, because it starts to become so obvious I'm wasting time over here and it's not really getting me anywhere. And I told my husband I was going to write a book called Mediocre Mom. I have 3 children. And, the first kid, you're just like, I've got to be the perfect mom. She had the 1-year-old birthday party with everything themed and she had all that stuff. But like, they're a bunch of 1-year-olds. Nobody remembers. She doesn't even remember, right? But I was bending over backwards because I'm a new mom and I'm like, look at me. I got to be in this role. Yeah, by the 3rd one, I'm just like, I'm not kidding you when I say that she was 8 years old before she was like, how come I never have a birthday party? I mean, we did stuff for her on her birthday. We didn't ignore her birthday. I'm not saying that, but we didn't throw the big party with all the kids. And she was 8 before she even realized that she was missing anything. So now we have to do it. But it's saying no to some things. And it's like, I'm sorry, I can't volunteer at the PTA. I'm running a business, but I'm doing the thing. I'm having quality time with my children because I work from home. Yeah. I had to just get super clear on my priorities and it just made it easier to say no to some things when I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it because this is what's important.
Yeah, it's funny because I had a friend years ago and being an entrepreneur, I do schedule my own time. And so she said to me, she said, well, you don't work, like you can come anytime during the day and so forth. And I'm like, actually, I do. Like I do have things that need to be done during the day. And it was just kind of funny the way she was it was actually disrespecting my time because she didn't assign value because there wasn't some external force that she perceived force of like a boss that she was used to that said you have to be there at this time. And it was just really interesting. But yeah, I'm a big fan of saying no to things, and people have been offended, but at the end of the day, when I'm on my, when I'm in my last days on earth, I don't think I'm going to be thinking, oh, I wish I would have done more of that busy stuff, right? There's going to be certain things that are going to be meaningful. And so I always, look at it that in that perspective and yeah. So it's easy to say no to bad opportunities.
Yes.
It's difficult to say no to the good opportunities that just aren't the right ones for you or the right ones right now or whatever. So.
And I think we also really have to ask ourselves, why are we so busy? So, and I'm sure you've had clients like this as well. And it's like, wait, why are you running around busy all day? And sometimes it's as simple as ego. Like the ego gets in our way and like, well, if I'm busy, then I am important. And if I'm important, then I feel good. And it's like, but you're sacrificing your life so that you can create this false little alter ego here of look at me. And even for me in my earlier business years, like I was like, look at me, I'm the owner of my own software company, whoop-de-doo. Now I look back, I'm like, whoop-de-doo. Like you didn't have any personal time. You were working way too many hours. Like I was burned out. And it wasn't a good personal thing, even though the numbers look good on paper. Personally, I was really suffering. Now I don't give up anything in my personal life. I have the great business and the amazing life, but it required me to check my ego and be like, you know what? Being busy isn't really all it's cracked up to be. I'm busy, but I'm busy on my terms. I'm not busy because it makes me feel like, oh, I'm important now. And so I think that can be a really big one, is to really look at why are you so busy? And sometimes we're busy because we're avoiding something in our lives we don't want to deal with. You're struggling in your marriage. And so you're working your butt off in your business, right? Because you don't want to deal with the marriage. So you go work in the business. Yeah. I think if you can identify why you're so busy and do the work to kind of deal with that or heal something or get some help, hire a coach, get a therapist, like whatever you need to do, it'll really help with the saying no. Because sometimes we're saying no as like a survival, or not saying no as a survival mechanism because I can't deal with whatever, or my ego is really getting in the way. So if you can kind of dive into those things, it will really help with the being able to say no.
I'm so glad you brought that up because, you can you can talk strategy all day long and say, here's a planner and it's going to save you time and all these things. And yet if somebody needs to feel validated to be like the badge of honor of being busy, none of that's going to matter. They're just going to cram their planner full of a bunch of stuff to validate that, and I think at some point we're all there where, many of us have been there where it's like, wow, like you said, I'm so busy. I've got running this company and blah,
Right.
blah, blah. And then you realize wait a second. So what is that? What is that?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm
So
really,
then what?
people say to me all the time, they'll say, you're so busy all the time. I'm sure you're just always so busy. And I'm like, I'm not as busy as you think I am,
Yeah.
because I intentionally choose not to be anymore. I
Right.
used to be extremely busy and worked long, long hours and never thought anything of it, but I was doing what I love. And so it was a different thing. But now there's that balance. And especially I think when you get
Yeah.
older, you understand what that balance is. So
Yeah.
great distinction. So it's the mindset,
Yep.
right? And then it's how you actually live that out, and you've got the tools to do that. So this is great. So I know that, a lot of times people will say, okay, it's great to say, slow down and prioritize and so forth, and it'll improve your business, it'll improve your life. But I
Mhm.
know you also have some really good stories of how that's actually netted your clients in big ways, right? So for
Mhm.
example, you have this one client, I think it was, I made a note on this, losing 20,000 a month to having a net profit of 300,000 in only 11 months. So how did these tools that you're talking about here work with this client to
Yeah,
make those
absolutely.
results?
That was my client, Brandon. Great, great fella. He's got a great end to his, not end to his story, but when he came to me, his business was losing between $20,000 and $25,000 a month, severely in the red, using debt to bridge the gap. So when he came to me, he had just taken out another loan. It wasn't his first one, another one for $150,000 to kind of keep the doors open. And he was truly going in so many directions. He was living in this day-to-day panicked state of, I've got to go make more sales so that I can, pay for payroll and keep the doors open, because he truly was going to lose the business if he didn't. And so what we did, one of the key things that we did was we had to slow him down a little bit, because if he slowed down, then we could do the work on the visioning piece of, well, what should this company look like? What do you want your life to look like? From that, we were able to then break out his goals. On the flip side, so I do a lot with profitability and cash flow. I'm like the time and money girl. And so whatever the problem is with time or money, like we work on those things. And let's face it, in life, those are kind of tend to be like our two biggest obstacles, or they can be our two biggest benefits is the time and the money. And so on the time side, we had to slow him down a little bit so we could do some of this work. We had to get him out of this constant panicked state of mind. I'm a huge believer, what you put out is what you get back. So when he's always putting out this panicked, everything's on fire, well, that's what he's getting back, is this state of where everything is on fire. So we had to kind of shift that in his mindset. And then on the flip side, in the business, we had to do some work on his business. His overhead was ridiculous. So we went through one of my exercises. I call it my cash flow quick fix. I'm not good with cutesy names. I'm just like, well, I'm just going to name it what it is. And that's what it is. And I do this with all of my business coaching clients. And even if they're profitable, we do this exercise. And we simply go through and we fix all the low-hanging fruit. Everything we can fix in cash flow quickly, we do that first. And then from there, we were able to dive into his business model. We were able to automate some things, eliminate some things. He ended up replacing almost, 50 or 60% of his staff. So some of them we eliminated with automation. Some of them were just really not doing their jobs. So we ended up going through the staff and kind of cleaning house there. And between those things together, we got him to a net profit that year of 300,000, which was huge for him when he had been so much in the red. So, our first priority was close the gap, get him mindset where it needs to be. Now we can focus on building revenues. Once the company is stable, we can scale it and grow. So he hit a net profit of 300,000. And the end of that story is, the next year, because he was so profitable, he became attractive to a much bigger company. They bought him out. So he pocketed $4 million and is now a millionaire and has sold his company and doing really well because of all that work that we did together to kind of get him in the right place. So this stuff absolutely works. But the thing about Brandon that I so admire is that he was in a place of his life where he was willing to listen. I mean, he was at rock bottom. And sometimes we have to get to rock bottom before we're willing to hear it. You're a coach, you know this. The clients that come in and they already know it all, I'm like, you're not going to be a good client. I'm looking for the person who is like, I am beat up, I am burned out, I will do anything you tell me to do if I can get out of this, because they are in the mindset to listen and actually do the work. And that's the key. That's why he was so successful, because he listened, he implemented what we needed to do, he did the work, and he got the results. It's really that simple.
Well, it was interesting because as you were sharing the story, I'm thinking 11 months. That means he had to, that's exactly what I was saying. He had to be ready to
Oh
make the
yeah.
changes,
Yeah.
because that's a lot of shifts happening in a short period of time to create that kind of outcome in that amount of time. So
Yeah.
kudos to you to be able to know what to do and to condense and compress that time of creating those shifts and creating that result.
Yeah.
But kudos to him for actually being willing to listen and
Right.
and get to that point where he's like, okay, we got to do something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When
Well,
you have cash flow problems like that, you better fix them quick or you're going to be gone. So there's not much time to sit around. It's like, okay, we need to get on this fast and get you in the black, get this gap closed. Once we got it closed, then we could circle back around and tackle the debt piece. But it's that mindset of being willing to listen, being willing to make those changes that really made all the difference. Otherwise, he would have been out of business.
yeah. I remember living in Toronto and living on a busy street downtown Toronto and King Street, and walking by the stores and so forth. And there was this one store, and this guy he actually worked for Salesforce, and I had met him there, but then he had started a business on the side, and it was pre-made dinners, pre-made meals and stuff. And so I would go by and I'd stop in and check with him, and he's like, no, business is fine. Business is fine. And I'm like, I haven't seen a customer in here anytime I've ever been here, but okay. So it was interesting. So 3 months later, I walked by and it was permanently closed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, define fine.
Right.
Because, and I mean, it didn't have to happen that way. It was a great concept. Look at today, the amount of pre-made dinners being sold and so forth, and their food was really good, but there was a disconnect somewhere along the way. There was a disconnect, and it's like, you know what, just get the support. Most businesses that fail, what is it, 70% of businesses that fail because they don't get the professional advice that they need, and they don't have, so that's not lack of knowledge, and yes, it is also lack of funds and resources, but oftentimes it's because they have a lack of knowledge of the use of the funds that they have or the opportunities that they have that causes that. So, hiring somebody like yourself or myself, as a business coach is so worth it in the long run, in the short run, and also in the long run as well.
Yeah.
So, awesome.
We talked about ego getting in the way of why you're so busy. Ego gets in the way of saying, I need help here. And as entrepreneurs, for whatever reason, we don't like to say we need help. But if you can check your ego and just be like, you know what? I need help. Just that skill will serve you so well. Like you don't have to unlearn it. Like once you know how to just be like, okay, no more ego. When I need help, I'm asking for help. It will serve you well the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. Well, that's a good place to end, I think. And let's recommend, I will recommend that the listeners and your viewers that you go to bestplannerever.com/LOT, which Jennifer has so kindly arranged for a designated page just for you with some information there on how you can connect with her. And you also have a gift for our listeners as well. Do you want to talk about that?
I do. So I'm going to do a 25% discount on any planner. If you find that it's a good fit for you, just for our listeners. And then there's also going to be an opt-in there for a master class, which are 5 productivity secrets that we didn't tap into today. So you can go in there and you can listen to the free class as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jennifer, I just so appreciate you being here, and I love your energy, and you're just, you could tell that your life is, you got lots of things going on, but you're grounded in it, and you're having fun, you're enjoying life, and that's what it's all about. Have
it really
fun, make
is.
money, make a difference.
It is. Guys, life is never perfect. Nobody ever has a perfect life. Life is never perfect, but things are darn good. And I like that. I like it when things are pretty dang good. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Well, to our listeners, I'm a big believer in taking action, taking the right actions, as we've been talking about here today. And so I would encourage you to go check out Jennifer's website. We'll have all this in the show notes so that you can get it there. bestplannerever.com/LOT. LOT stands for Leaders of Transformation, of course. And, take action on something. Maybe it's stopping, tonight just before you go home from work or at the end of your day, is to even just look at your calendar and see what's in there that's really unnecessary, or look at that to-do list and start doing that ABCDE, on your to-do list for tomorrow. Start today with something, because, if you keep putting it off and keep putting it off, then it becomes like those C items that never actually get taken care of. They just keep moving and moving, and oh yeah, I was supposed to do that, and that would make my life so much more simpler, but I'm so in it, and because habit can be great, but also habit can be limiting, and depends on the habit that we have. So I would encourage you to take action on what you learned here today. We love to hear your stories and your comments and questions. And certainly you can find us on leadersoftransformation.com, or of course on social media. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Leaders of Transformation real soon.